Well, since the pandemic, most people are a little hypersensitive about any red flag from their body that might signal sickness. Get a sniffle, you get a cough, especially in the cold and flu season. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, you must have COVID or something like that. I mean, we're like getting so totally stressed out on all of this right now. But I have someone here that can hopefully calm some fears a little bit and put a little perspective in all this. And talking with Jim LaValle. And Jim, I appreciate you being here. Jim is a pharmacist.
Clinical pharmacist, and I'm boarded in clinical nutrition. I study as much about prevention and teach all over the world about, how do you stay out of trouble and keep yourself healthy, as much as I worry about, what medication someone needs to be on.
Well, and that's good. That's good. Some of the smartest people are the pharmacists because they're the ones giving you the medication that the doctor has prescribed. And they say, well, you know what? You might want to take something with this, food with this, or you don't take this at the same time with this, and it interferes. So it's good to have you guys there. Now, stress has always been, at least in my experience, if you seem to be a little overstressed, whether it's for an exam at school or something like that, somehow you get a cold. How are the two related?
A lot of times people think, I'm not that stressed. But then, they've got all these different signs and symptoms going on that they may not realize are related to it. And one of the big ones is that when you get under chronic stress, hey, my workload is heavy, I'm working extra hours, I'm having trouble at home, maybe with one of my kids, who knows? Maybe my email went down, right? Whatever it is, when that chronic stress, day in and day out stress starts to hit you, it actually makes your immune system less able to fight off bugs. What happens is your natural killer cells and your T killer cells, which are a part of your immune system, they don't get as active. They end up getting sluggish. And so when, you're under a lot of stress, you get a cold bug, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, man, why did this thing hit me so hard? And we kind of found that out over the last few years when people's, their chemistry was metabolically stressed. And, the things that people don't understand is something like feeling tired and losing your focus in the middle of the day, like feeling foggy-brained, or I always say pushing a thought through Jell-O. Do you feel like that?
Yeah.
Do you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? Are you craving sweets or carbs? You get home from work and you go, I'm going to hug that Lay's potato chip bag. I love my chip, right? I want that crunchy, salty hit, or I need to have that sweet. Or maybe I need that glass of wine at night in order to calm me down, right? But weight gain can be another sign. Poor recovery from exercise. God, I love to exercise, but every time I do it, I feel crappy the next couple of days. All of that stuff is telling you that stress is probably started to shift your immune response and how the chemicals in your brain, the neurochemicals in your brain are acting that are causing you to, want a reward, to want comfort food. And a lot of times, people just don't, they don't add those things up and go, oh, wow, I guess this stress really is starting to affect me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's almost impossible to totally eliminate stress through a person's day. I mean, is there such thing as good stress and bad stress? I mean, there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, good stress and bad stress. I mean, how can you counteract a stressful lifestyle and keep your immune system working like it ought to?
First thing is that your body doesn't know whether stress is good or bad. It just knows it's either a white tiger or a cheetah running after you, right? Oh. So it's understanding that your body has to respond to this stress. So what do? A couple things. One is you can, because everybody's going to have stress. We're living in a modern world. It's going to happen. Doing breathing techniques, box breathing, 3 minutes twice a day, 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, release the stress of the morning. That 4 seconds out, hold 4 seconds. It sounds weird, but it resets your nervous system. And so doing that 3 minutes twice a day, maybe in the afternoon right before you go to your lunch break, maybe when you first get home from work, that can be a big plus. There's nutrients that can help. I mean, certainly exercise, like regular exercise. Get out, take a walk. I mean, nice brisk walk for 30 to 45 minutes, 5 days a week. Huge for helping you to kind of counterbalance that effect of stress. And then there's nutrients that can be invaluable. If you're looking at things like, well, gee, stress, I tend to get sick a lot. There's something called plant sterols and sterolins, which were first developed in South Africa. And now, here in the U.S., people are taking sterols and sterolins, something called Moducare, which is really immune food to keep your immune system in balance. So you're feeding those natural killer cells and T killer cells to keep them active. So that's a big one. And the other one to keep in mind is you got to look at your blood pressure and your heart rate. If you want to understand if stress is getting to you, if your blood pressure is over 120 over 80, and if your resting heart rate's in the 70s, well, that's a big thing too, because that tells you that your body is in fight or flight. And so, it's important for people to kind of look at it and go, well, yeah, I have trouble sleeping. I can't get to sleep. And gee, I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm start making a list of what I got to do, and that's a sure sign that your brain has been kind of overworked during the day, and it can't get rid of the stress that it took on.
Wow. Your brain's got to shut down just a little bit. Yeah, you always say, I woke up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden my brain just was clicked on. Maybe it stayed on, and I didn't shut it off before I went to bed. It could be due to some anxiety. And how does short-term anxiety actually stimulate the immune activity?
It's interesting. They've studied that, actually, that, when you have short-term stress, right, that fight or flight response in the short term, it's like lasts for maybe, a few minutes to an hour, your immune system actually becomes, readied. It's better. It's like it's ready to respond to a threat. The problem comes in that, fight or flight isn't, oh, my email went down. Oh, the studio recording equipment was an error, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like that kind of stress isn't fight or flight stress. It's not life-threatening stress, but our nervous system responds to it that way. And so all of a sudden now you're in fight or flight more frequently, and your nervous system starts to get trained that way. So acute stress is actually stimulates your immune system. Chronic stress actually weakens your body's ability to fight things off. And so I'm a big proponent, obviously. I mean, I've written 20 books, and all of them have nutrients in them. And all of us heard about vitamin C and zinc and quercetin over the last 3 years. And I think there's some other ones that are interesting. For example, aged garlic extract. Aged garlic extract's got 900 publications on it that shows that it helps to improve your immune function. It makes your blood vessels more flexible. So if you're under chronic stress and your blood pressure's starting to go up, aged garlic extract, or if people are looking for a brand on that, it's called Kyolic, actually has amazing amounts of information from leading universities showing that it could be a pretty important component for prevention. Like, hey, I want to take something to keep me well. Let's not wait till I break and need to go to the doctor to get a sleeping pill or something for anxiety or something for my blood pressure. Let me start to work on that by, using nutrients, diet, exercise, stress reduction techniques. Because, look, in the end, a third of all adults have heart disease. Half of our adult population in the U.S. are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. So by default, we got folks that are under a lot of metabolic stress to begin with, and we just have to be more proactive on trying to correct for that.
Well, let's talk about the tried and true positive thinking, because there's a billion books out there about positive thinking, and how does positive thinking keep the what do you call them, the inflammation levels low?
Positive thinking typically is going to lower your stress response. And why that's important is that you release a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is your fight or flight hormone. And the problem is that if you release cortisol too often because of negative thoughts or, hey, I got too much loaded on me, I can't cope, that what happens is you start to release more inflammatory, they're called cytokines. Everybody heard about the cytokine storm that occurred, due to COVID? Like, you have this cytokine storm. You create your own chronic cytokine storm when you're under chronic stress. So positive thinking, doing, meditation and prayer has been shown to improve that. But even that simple box breathing technique will start to rewire your body to not allow those stress hormones to overrun you. And therefore, you start to turn off those inflammatory pathways.
Well, we kind of like to know where we are on the stress level. I mean, there's so many components to all of this. But how can you test your stress levels to get a little better prognosis, and also to kind of get a health plan to say, okay, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. So how do I get there?
Do an inventory. Do you have energy crashes during the day? Do you feel fatigued? And do you have a loss of focus? Do you have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep? Are you craving sweets and carbs? Are you gaining weight? Do you feel overcommitted during your day? Are you waking up in the middle of the night making lists? And then, so those are the things that you'll experience. And then there's, where is my blood pressure at? What's my resting heart rate? When I get up in the morning, where's my heart rate at? If it's in the 70s, more than likely your body's under a little bit of excessive stress. And so those are some easy things to look at: blood pressure, and you get your heart rate when you do your blood pressure. And then what are those signs? Sleep, cravings, weight gain, fatigue, feeling overcommitted during the day. What do you do about it? Well, it's you got to make a plan, a lifestyle that says, I'm not going to let stress take me out, because a lot of times people think, well, I'm not a smoker, I'm not going to get heart disease, or gee, I'm not overweight, I'm not going to get heart disease. It turns out the number one risk factor for heart disease is what's called autonomic nervous system dysfunction. And how does that happen? Your nervous system gets chronically hyper aroused, and that causes your blood vessels to stay stiff. And so it's really important to, yes, look, we all know we should eat more vegetables. We should eat less refined carbs and eat less sugar and don't drink as much alcohol. But you got to start doing that. But the problem is, when you go home from work, you're going to pass 25 bakeries and 32 liquor stores and not one broccoli stand.
We need more broccoli stands. Who said that wasn't a great business idea?
Did it? Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be successful.
Oh, me.
But the point being is that it's creating a plan that you start to stick to. And you don't have to be a nervous wreck in order to start to acknowledge that stress is really creating problems for you in your life.
Well, Jim, where can we go to find out some more information about this? There's so much to this. We got to go and do a little research ourselves. Where can we go?
Sure. There's a few areas at jimlavelle.com. I certainly have, information on my website. If they're interested in the Magicare or Kyolic, they could go to kyolic.com. They have all the research on those kind of, ingredients that talk about stress. And the other one is, of course, when you're under stress, you start to lose some of your beneficial flora, your microbiome, or the good bacteria in your gut. Good information at probiotics.com as well. And I think it's really important for people just to kind of get, and they are like, look, we got wearable watches now telling us it's time to breathe, right? Well,
yeah.
Well, bottom line is we should really know we're breathing.
Yeah.
But we don't. So I just hope people take action after they listen today.